Going on? Welcome inside the Red Mile Rundown, episode 64. This is your host, Johnny, so alongside me, as always, Mr. Robert Munich from Flames Nation. How are we doing today, Robert?
We're doing pretty good. Enjoying the Olympics, enjoying the time off the NHL, and not having to watch the Calgary Flames and Vancouver Canucks. What feels like every single night of my life. So yeah, it's been a nice little change of pace here.
Well said. Hopefully that music for the few people who messaged me. Apparently last week's music was a little too loud on the pod. So hopefully that this week was a little bit better for you listeners. We appreciate you joining us and making us part of your podcast rotations. And a shout out to the X followers. We had about 30 people follow the X account in the last 2 weeks, Robert. Don't know what it was. Don't know why, but thank you and welcome aboard the Red Mile Rundown on social media. The Flames are at the break. Of course, NHL breaking for the Olympics. We're all excited to watch Team Canada play and hopefully win a gold medal for this nation again and hopefully break the hearts of the Americans again because we love watching that kind of stuff. So we weren't sure what to talk to on this episode of the Red Mile Rundown, but Robert, the good co-host that he is, comes up with some really good topics. And so let's start with topic number one because it actually is the latest breaking news from the Flames that we have. It's an unfortunate bit of news for the Flames, but something that also may explain a little bit about why Jonathan Huberdeau was struggling this season is they announced that he will go for hip resurfacing surgery, which doesn't sound the least bit of fun. Robert, this is a big-time injury. This is a big-time surgery for Jonathan Huberdeau. What's your take on this situation for the Flames? Because this affects not only the immediacy for the Flames, but also long-term.
Yeah, I mean, like a few things come to mind. I mean, in the here and now, the first thing that I think about is there's a reason why Huberdeau was playing the way he was. I mean, this is an injury that he's been dealing with all season, according to Craig Conroy. And I think it's just been continuing to get worse and worse and worse. And I think there's a correlation between the way Huberdeau was playing and this injury. So at least there's a little bit of an explanation there. It's not just the fact that Huberdeau's 32 and he's starting the decline of his career. I do think this injury has a lot to do with him, specifically like his skating and his ability not to move very well. So there's that. Number two, I mean, it opens up a spot for a young player. Like I know that you don't want to look at an injury like this, but like whenever there's an injury, there is an opportunity that arises. So it's going to be really interesting to see, who gets called up, who gets an opportunity to play in the top nine. Is it going to be an Adam Klapka or Martin Pospisil already on the lineup, or is it going to be a Stromgren, Cairns, or somebody else from the Calgary Wranglers? That's going to be pretty interesting to watch too. And then number three, and I think this is kind of the most important one, is I'm really worried about the future of Jonathan Huberdeau. I mean, we've already seen the play has declined since coming to Calgary pretty significantly. And then now he's, embarking on this major surgery, a surgery that has literally ended the careers of multiple NHL players. There's very few cases where guys are able to return from this hip resurfacing surgery and end up playing at the same level that they were prior to the injury. Patrick Kane comes to mind, John Klingberg comes to mind, but Klingberg, it took him a long time to get back to playing at the level that we're known to see him play. So I'm worried about the future of Jonathan Huberdeau. We saw him this season. I know, like I said, he was playing through the injury, but what's he going to look like, after this surgery? I mean, I'm at $10.5 million, at 33 years old. I don't think enough people are making a big deal about this surgery and what it means for the future of Huberdeau. I am quite concerned. And, does this mean that he goes from being a 50 to 60 point player to now a 30 to 40 point player? That's a serious question that needs to be asked. And, I'm really curious. I mean, Craig Conroy didn't make it sound like it's that serious, but I think he was doing that on purpose. I think this is a really big deal. So I know a lot of people who have talked about this issue have just, they just said, he's out for the season with the injury and he'll be back next year, and they kind of move on. I don't know about you, John. If I'm the Flames, I'm kind of shitting myself thinking about what the future holds for this guy, because it might even get worse than it's already been.
I look at it this way. Does he come back? because you've seen this injury sideline guys like Nicholas Backstrom. You've seen guys that moved better than Huberdeau, play better than Huberdeau, are that level of passer of Huberdeau. You've seen guys have this surgery, and we don't see those guys anymore. We don't see these players come back and play. Like Patrick Kane for me is the outlier. He's just that good. That sometimes being that good, you can make it work. Huberdeau wasn't the best skater to begin with, and now you're taking away even more of that ability. We saw what happened this year when he can't move around as much. His hands become less effective. His vision's not as good. Obviously, you're not making the smart plays, or can't. You have to think of the game at a higher level that he's maybe beyond his abilities to think. So, a lot of people, like you mentioned there, Robert, are saying, "Well, he'll be back next year." Will he? Will he? Or will it be more of a John Klingberg situation where if he does come back eventually, it's a couple seasons down the road. It's slowly. It's what is this? So I'm not trying to take the dark look at this injury, Robert, but that definitely has to be part of the equation when you look at the resurfacing of the hip. That's not an easy thing to recover from. It is a massive, major surgery. It's invasive to your body, and it takes a while to get used to. And you lose some of your limitations. And to get back to being an elite NHL level player or even a good NHL player, that's going to take a lot of work by Huberdeau. He can do it. I'm sure he can, and he's willing to do the work and put in the effort and do that kind of thing. But I don't think the statement should be he'll be back next year. If he's back to start at the beginning of next year, how effective will he be? If he's here by Christmas, what will he be? If he has to miss a full season to help recover from the surgery, what is he going to be when you get into the 27-28 season? You have to ask all of these questions because I think they're all on the table right now because he's not getting that surgery until March. We still have a few weeks till he gets that surgery, and then the road to recovery starts. And you're asking someone to get a major hip surgery done to be ready in 6 months or so. It's a tall task to ask. So I'm also worried about what Huberdeau is post-surgery, how much that's going to affect his game, because it's already pretty bad. Let's be honest. Let's call a spade. Injury aside, it's been pretty bad from Jonathan Huberdeau this year, and it doesn't look pretty going forward when he was healthy. So there's a lot of questions in the air for me for Huberdeau, and hopefully he can go through the surgery and helps his quality of life out, and hopefully the guy Huberdeau himself is better for it. The hockey player Huberdeau, I just don't know what we're going to expect, Robert.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. But the other way to look at this whole situation is because the Flames they're essentially starting their rebuild right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the next 3 years of Flames hockey, like the results don't really matter. So if you're gonna have a Jonathan Huberdeau who's gonna take another step back, who's gonna be a little bit slower, who's not gonna produce as much because of this hip injury and this surgery, you know, that's, I guess in the grand scheme of things, it's not really that big a deal because ultimately over the next 2 to 3 years, you actually want the Flames to kind of bottom out and you want them to pick high in the draft. And, you know, Huberdeau going from, you know, who he was last season, 60 plus points, 28 goals, decent 200-foot player, you know, playing on both sides of special teams, like he was helping the Flames get closer to the mushy middle than the bottom. After this hip resurfacing surgery, you know, I would argue that, you know, he's probably not going to come back the same player and he's going to be worse, and it's actually going to help the Flames bottom out a little bit more. The issue that I think you're worried about is what does this look like in the last 2 to 3 years of his contract?
Mm-hmm.
In those last 2 to 3 years, that's when the Flames are going to be looking to take the next step and kind of push their way back into being a playoff team and getting back to being competitive. Does having a $10.5 million Jonathan Huberdeau putting up 25 to 30 points as a 37-year-old, you know, play a major role in making sure you don't get to the playoffs in those years? So I think that's where the concern is coming from me. Like I said, the next 3 years, not too worried about it, but you know, the final 2 years of the contract, you know, those could get really ugly, and that's going to be a time when the Flames want to get good again, and that $10.5 million could be spent, you know, in a lot better areas on players who are actually going to help you get to the next level. So that's kind of another way to look at it here. And you know, maybe for those last couple of years, you can eat half his salary and maybe trade him along with a draft pick, or you can buy him out because you'll save a little bit in the cap in those final 2 years of the deal, and then that you end up extending that cap charge. It's like $500,000 for like the final 2 years if you buy him out. So, so I don't know. There's some interesting options there, but yeah, if you're on Team Tank, it's actually it's not really the worst thing in the world for Huberdeau to maybe take a step back here. I know it's kind of a crappy thing to say about a guy who just got hurt, but that's the reality of the situation the Flames are in right now, and I think it's how a lot of Flames fans are going to view this whole thing. So, yeah, hopefully for the guy, hopefully for the human, Huberdeau gets back to playing some decent hockey and his quality of life is good. You're always cheering for that, but at the same time, it's honestly, it's not the worst thing in the world from a Flames perspective.
Yeah, I got nothing to add to there. I agree wholeheartedly with what you just said there. I think, and it is the more morbid way of looking at it, this Huberdeau injury opens the door for someone, right? Whether that's more minutes for Gridden, whether that's a step up in the lineup for a Martin Pospisil, whether that's a call up for a William Stromgren. There's an opportunity now for another hockey player that's going to help this organization, or should help this organization moving forward, help this player get an opportunity to be in the lineup and show what he's worth, whoever that might be. And it's also going to help in the long term. Those players getting this opportunity should help in the long term of this franchise as well, to help prolong, or not prolong, I guess that's the wrong word, to help progress someone in their player development. And you're hoping when Huberdeau comes back, if he comes back, that he's a good pro and that he's a good veteran leader for those younger players, the Griddens, the Coronados, the Zaris, et cetera, who's ever around at the time he comes back, and just becomes that good veteran. I think we now have to, and I know it's impossible, and people are going to come back at me and say you have to take into consideration his contract, but I think we need to take out the contract right now. The cap doesn't matter for the Flames. What can Huberdeau provide when he's back from this surgery? And I think that is being a leader, being a guy who's willing to do a little bit less with ice time and having an opportunity to help these kids off the ice be a better pro themselves and help them in their player development. So it'll be interesting how this all works out long-term for the Flames. But in the immediacy, it sucks for Huberdeau that he has to have a season cut short this direction, this way. It affects his season like it did. And the positive side of it is there's someone else going to get an opportunity that I hope they seize that opportunity and that takes advantage of the position that they're put in to help this team move forward here. So a few ways to look at that Jonathan Huberdeau injury.
Who do you want to see get that chance to take a spot in the lineup?
I'm just about to throw that right back at you. I'm like, do you have names for a specific call-up, or do you want someone in the lineup, Ori Rose? For me, I'd like to see, and I know he's already got a call-up this year, but I'd like to see a guy like William Stromgren actually get a run in that top 9 somewhere. He played a lot of fourth line when he was up before, and he was very limited in the minutes he got. I'd like to see him actually get a real opportunity. And the other guy that a lot of people are saying that I'm going to echo as well is Rory Cairns. Can he get an opportunity in that top 9? Those are two guys that I look at. I really hope it's not here. Let's recall Hunt and move Pospisil up the lineup. I hope it's a younger player that gets an opportunity to come in here and show what they've got. So for me, it's Stromgren and maybe Cairns.
For me, it's definitely Cairns. Especially because it's a spot in the top 9. It's not a fourth line spot that opens up, and I just think the guy has NHL hands. I think he has like NHL hockey IQ. I think the things that are holding him back are his skating and his size. He's a smaller guy and he's a below average NHL skater. So I would just like to see if, over the next, 26 games remaining this season, I'd like to see him play all 26. I'd like to see him play in the top 9 and just see if he can be an NHL player. I think that would be a really good test for him. Mm-hmm. And, if he comes in and he produces at half a point per game or produces at like a 35 points over 82, like that type of pace, then I think there's a legit conversation about him being a full-time NHLer next season. If he can't do it, then, it might be, I don't know if it'd be time to move on, but I think it might be time just to acknowledge that he is an AHL player and there's nothing wrong with that. But I would love to see him get a shot because, you already know what Pospisil is. You already know what Adam Klapka is. You don't really need those guys to prove anything else. We don't know what Rory Cairns is because he hasn't had really a legitimate opportunity in the NHL. He hasn't had a long look. So give the guy the 26 games, play him in the top 9, play him on the power play, and this is his NHL audition. And if he does well, then he's a guy that can come into camp next year and fight for a spot. And if he doesn't, then we'll just acknowledge that he's probably an AHL, like a really good AHL player, and you need those people in your organization. So
100%.
yeah, I'd love to see Cairns. I think that would be awesome for him.
So we're telling you is be prepared for 26 games of Dryden Hunt coming up for the Flames, because that's how they like to roll. Sam Morton's another guy that I wouldn't mind getting a look here once in a while. Like, I wouldn't put him top 9, but he's a guy as well that maybe you use that space that you have and call him up for a small run on that fourth line, and instead of bringing Kirkland back up, you bring up Sam Morton and give him a few games. Would be another way I'd look at helping this roster out. So I'm excited 100%. For Dryden. Excited for Dryden Hunt's recall coming up at the end of this Olympic break. So,
dude, I genuinely believe Sam Morton can play fourth line center in the NHL.
My question there is, and I don't disagree. My question is he any worse than Kirkland has been?
I think he'd be better. He's a way better skater. He's a better offensive player. Like, I think he's more dynamic. I genuinely think he's quite a bit better than Justin Kirkland. Kirkland has proved this year that he is not an NHL player. And that might be unfair because he is coming off that devastating knee injury. But at the same time, like, he just has not performed. And I genuinely think that the games that Sam Morton played earlier in the year, he proved that he can be an NHLer. And I'd love to see him get a chance too. But like you said, it's probably going to be the Dryden Hunt here soon.
Yeah, see, for me, Sam Morton, if he's going to give you as good or better than Kirkland, then there's really no harm. Like, what are you doing here? No. I like Kirkland and Hunt are those perfect in-between guys or top-line AHL guys that you use in an emergency situation type of deal, not regular NHL lineup guys. Interesting reading social media over the last little while, Robert, and there was rumors out of Ottawa about a certain Flame player and how maybe Detroit or Boston circles back around to the Flames to ask about this player and about how the Flames could take advantage of this full rebuild and just go full into moving anyone who's over the age of 30. Mackenzie Weegar's name keeps popping up on the trade market on social medias that I've seen. I haven't seen very many insiders talk about it, but it's just interesting that name is out there. If you're Craig Conroy and you're given the keys, do you call Ottawa? Do you call Boston? Do you call Detroit and see what their best offer is for Mackenzie Weegar? Or are you keeping this guy? Is he your veteran leader going forward? Or is it just not the time to trade Mackenzie Weegar? Where do you fall on the Mackenzie Weegar discussion online here?
Oh, I'm definitely torn on this one because part of me says, yes, every single player on this roster, like outside the young guys, is available via trade. And Weegar is definitely in that mix. But then there's also the part of me that's like, you do need veterans around. I really do believe that. You know, I do think some of the culture stuff has been overblown because the Flames have just had no success, but all people talk about is just this amazing culture, but it hasn't led to success. In order to win, culture is important, but talent acquisition is also incredibly important too. So like in my opinion, you need to have great coaching, great strategy, you need to have a great culture, and you need to have lots of talent. And I do think it's important that the Flames maintain like a good culture, like, and not necessarily like a winning one because they're not going to win over the next 3 years, but just keeping things light around the room, making it a good environment for young players to develop, because there's going to be a lot of young guys that come in over the next 3 years here. And you do need like solid human beings in that room, like really good character people. And I think Mackenzie Weegar is that guy. So, you know, part of me is like, yeah, you know, if you can get a lot for him, trade him, because, you know, maybe he's starting to go on the decline here. I mean, he's had a horrendous season. You know, is that the start of something potentially, or is he going to rebound and he'll maintain his trade value over the next few years, and you can move him 3 or 4 years from now, but still have him in the dressing room? Like, so I would say I lean more towards keeping him, just because he just seems like such a great dude. Everybody has nothing but amazing things to say about him. He is, I would say, probably the second most important leader, maybe outside of a Michael Backlund. And I think it's important that you have at least some of those guys around over the next 3 years just to help kind of move this thing in the right direction. So, I mean, initially I would say, no, this is not the time to trade him. And you also got to keep in mind, I don't know if his trade value is all that high. Like, if you're an NHL GM or a pro scout, and you're watching Mackenzie Weegar this year, this is not a guy I'm investing a lot in to bring in for this year, because it's just been a train wreck for him. So, yeah, I mean, I would say keep him. But I do understand why people would definitely want to put him on the trade block because just of the position the Flames are in right now.
Yeah, I lean towards I'm keeping him, but I'm not opposed to trading him. So if Ottawa comes through and they're going to give you like a top 3 prospect in their organization, their first round pick, and another piece, and take all the contract, well, that's something you got to look at. I think that's just good asset management. And if Mackenzie Weegar comes to you and says, "Hey, I actually would like to move on. I need a different situation. It's not working," then okay, you look at those options. But I think for all the reasons you mentioned about the leadership that he brings and what he actually can be when playing on a good team and playing in a positive environment, I think he's the kind of guy you want around. He likes the team. He likes the city. He's all in. You can tell he's all in for all of his teammates all the time. He goes to bat for everybody, and you love those kind of guys on your roster. So I know his age is not going to please a portion of the Flame fan base, but at the same time, he's a guy that you can lean on to be a leader. And you take him out of this defense, and if they do trade away Joe Hanley, your defense core is all 25 and under. Right. So you're looking at a very young defense. Oh, I guess White Cloud, but like most of these guys are 25 and under. So like you're looking at a very young group. And if you're trading White Cloud, that's another reason to keep Mackenzie Weegar. Like you gotta make sure that you have proper asset management here. But this is a guy that it'd be really hard for me to move him because of what he can bring to the lineup. But you got to keep the open mind as well. Hey, if they're gonna knock your socks off, then it's something you got to look at. So it's an interesting conversation because you also have to include, Robert, the other point you sent to me in our notes here was this the start of the decline of Mackenzie Weegar, or was it just an anomaly in his career? Does he bounce back next year? Is he a better player next year? Because this is right around the age where you see a lot of defensemen start to decline. So you got to factor that in as well, because if this is the decline of Mackenzie Weegar, it's not pretty. It's not really pretty at all. So I don't know where you go from there if that is the decline. But, man, I love this player. And I love his energy, and I love what he brings to the lineup. And you love that in your lineup, and you want him to be a good teacher for your younger players. Parekh learned so much from Mackenzie Weegar playing with him. Prestevich, the same thing. We've seen Kuznetsov learn a ton with Mackenzie Weegar. So it's going to be tough to trade this guy, but you got to factor in everything as well around Mackenzie Weegar.
Yeah, and a couple of things there. So, we talk about the decline. I think next year he's going to come back a better player. He doesn't have the pressure of Team Canada Olympics. He doesn't have the pressure of wanting to put the franchise on his back and make the playoffs, because I think we all know that they're going to have another rough year next year. So you take all of that pressure off him. He can just go out there and just play hockey now, and he can just go out there and be a leader. So, with that in mind, I do think that he is going to come back and have a better season. But the one thing that does concern me is his skating. I think his skating has really taken a step back this year. I find he gets caught flat-footed a lot. I find he's second to a lot of 50-50 puck battles, and I think it's really hurting his game right now. So, and I don't know, maybe he's injured, maybe he's got some sort of like lower body injury or something like that. But if he can just come back as just a little bit better of a skater and then have all that pressure off of him, I do think he can be a good player again. I don't know if we'll ever see him get to the level where he's being considered for a Team Canada. I just don't know if that's realistic, especially as he kind of gets older and into his mid to late 30s. But that's kind of how I see it playing. Like, do you think he's going to come back, or do you think this is just the start of it for him?
I think where Mackenzie Weegar is somewhere between what we see this year and what we saw last year, because last year was a really good season for him, right? You got to the goal mark and all that good stuff. So I think he's a better player than we've seen this year. Like, he's got a lot of tough luck this year as well, jumping off the bench and just getting a minus because he was in the neutral zone at the time a goal goes in, those type of things. But at the same time, he's, his skating is like, so once he, I think, adjusts, he'll have to adjust his game a little bit, in my opinion, think a little bit quicker, be more positionally sound type of defenseman. I think he can adjust and be that. So I think we see a rebound from Mackenzie Weegar. I don't think we see 20 goal Mackenzie Weegar anymore, but he's definitely better than what he's shown this year. It's just been just that type of awful snowball down the hill type of season for him.
Yeah, no, I there's no way he's ever getting to 20 goals again. That was kind of like a once in a lifetime sort of season for him.
It was a great season.
It was awesome. Yeah, it was fantastic. But like, just everything was going in for him. Like, he's throwing like these weak little muffins from the point, and they're just somehow finding the back of the net. Like, it just wasn't sustainable, but it was a great year for him. I just go back to just with Weegar, I really like the person. I really like the human being.
100%.
I like all the work that he does in the community. I like the way he talks about Calgary, and I like the way he talks about being a Flame. I mentioned this a few times that I find a lot of the guys who play in Calgary, they don't feel like Calgary Flames. Like, they don't feel like a true Calgary Flame. That is not the case for Mackenzie Weegar. I think he is a Calgary Flame through and through, and I think he bleeds red and white. And I think he is a really important person, for this organization. I think that's why I wouldn't trade him. And you think about the leadership core moving forward. Blake Coleman and Nazem Kadri are likely to be moved between now and the draft. So you take those two guys out of the mix. Jonathan Huberdeau might not be the same player ever again because of this surgery. When you have a 30 to 40 point, $10.5 million player, I don't really know if you can view him as a true leader on the team anymore. So it's basically like, what it's probably going to be Mackenzie Weegar, Michael Backlund. I hope they keep Ryan Lomberg, but that remains to be seen. But then all of a sudden, then you need guys like Frost and Farabee and Kevin Ball and those types of guys to step up in leadership roles. It's just they're running out of leaders, and you can't trade every single one of them. I know you can go in free agency and overpay for a couple of them, and they're probably going to do that, which I'm totally fine with. But you still need like true, torch carriers,
100%.
true members of the Calgary Flames to kind of, stick up for the franchise and be good spokespeople and be good leaders. And I just think Mackenzie Weegar is absolutely that guy.
He's not on our rundown today, Robert, but I think that's also where Zach Whitecloud can fit into the conversation. If you keep him around, there's a big upside to keeping him around because the way he's talking about being in Calgary and being in Canada and playing, I think he fits a very similar mold.
It's a great point, and just the nice thing about Weegar too is that he can play the left side. So people will say, well, you have to move one of Whitecloud or Weegar to get space for Brstevich and Perek, but that's not necessarily the case. You can move Mackenzie Weegar to the left side and then open up two spots for Brstevich and Perek next season. So honestly, I know, like you said, he's very rundown here, but man, the more I watch Whitecloud and the more I listen to Whitecloud, the more I'm like, I really hope the Flames actually keep this guy.
Yeah, I went from he's a throw-in on that Rasmus Anderson trade to flip for another second-round pick type of thing to maybe this is a guy that gets a letter on him next year and helps lead this group and can be a really good defensive partner, say, for a guy like Jan Kuznetsov next year or a younger player coming up next year to help progress another player along because him and Ball together have been really good as well. So it's just like he's gone from this, hey, maybe he's a flippable asset to maybe he's part of the core going forward at 29 years old and under a good contract right now.
Yeah, and they don't have to trade him right now. You can play out the next 2 years of his contract here, and then trade him at the 2028 deadline, or if he's open to extending on like a shorter term deal. I don't think you want to sign him to a 6 or 7 year deal, but that's another option too. So yeah, I'm in the exact same boat as you. When they initially acquired him, I'm like, oh yeah, you obviously flip him, and then that that trade package becomes pretty massive for Rasmus Anderson, but yeah. I'm almost thinking, maybe you keep the guy for the next couple years and you have another positive influence in that locker room for a lot of these young defensemen.
Yeah, absolutely. Mackenzie Weegar, Zach Whitecloud both look like they're guys that are all in on being a Flame until they're told otherwise. And you love those kind of players. This next guy seems to be all out now, and that's the feeling I get when I watch 91 skate around or pretend to skate around in a Flames jersey right now. So I'm going to turn it over to you because you told me you have a rant here to go off on. So I say Nazem Kadri. What says Robert?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have a rant so much, but like the one point that I do really want to like hammer home here with Nazem Kadri is like I've seen some NHL insiders, they've said that the Flames haven't got the offers they're looking for yet for Nazem Kadri. And if they don't get the offer they're looking for, then they're more than happy to keep him. And I really, really disagree with that sentiment. Like, I think the Calgary Flames have to trade Nazem Kadri between now and the trade deadline because like there's a couple reasons. Number one, he's going to be 35 next year. And when you hit 35 years old, that's the true start of a decline. I think we've already started to see a bit of a decline in Kadri's play now. So if you're not going to get the package that you desire for him this season and right now, you're never going to get it. And that trade package for Kadri is just going to continue to diminish and diminish and diminish. And it's going to get to the point where you're really not going to get anything for the guy. So I think the urgency on a Kadri trade needs to go up by about 10 because he has to go, because his value is never going to be higher. And, if it means they have to, eat some salary, whatever, that's totally fine. But just between now and the deadline, you got to move him. And then number two, based off the way he's been playing recently and body language and all that kind of stuff, it does look to me like he does not want to be part of this. It looks to me like he wants to go to a contender, and he's the kind of guy that, he kind of quits a little bit when he's not fully invested. And I just don't think he's fully invested right now. And and I don't think that's going to be a positive influence for a lot of the young guys on this team to see a guy like Kadri kind of go through the motions, hold on the puck, the entire shift and try to beat guys 1-on-4. And he's not dumping in pucks. He's not battling hard right now. He's not doing like the little things that you want your young players doing. I don't think he's setting a good example right now on the ice. So I am all in on the Flames trading him, and they have to do it now, because if they don't do it now, that value is just going to continue to go down. And I think that's going to end up becoming a bit of a problem here. So that's kind of how I feel about the Kadri situation. Are you kind of seeing it a similar way?
Yeah, I think you'd have to be okay with taking a little bit less than a trade package as well. Like,
and there's nothing wrong with that.
Get that contract out of here. And I'm gonna go off here. Get the contract out of the way. Get that attitude out of your building. Like, get that body language out of the building. That game against, what was it, a few weeks ago in Pittsburgh, when Sportsnet was just praising the fiery passion of Kadri as he threw a tantrum on the bench. I'm like, that's toddler behavior. That's not fiery passion. This guy needs to get moved for a couple of reasons. One, he obviously doesn't want to be here anymore and be part of this rebuild. He obviously doesn't want to go down the road of losing a bunch of games. So he'll be better for someone who's contending, because that's who Nazem Kadri is. When he's in the fight of something for a Stanley Cup or playoffs, he's a much better hockey player. We saw that in Colorado. We saw that in the first couple of years in Calgary, especially last season when they were battling really hard to get that 8th spot. You saw good Nazem Kadri. He comes around when he's in the fight. He's in the battle. What you don't want is, like you mentioned there, Robert, this is not the example you want for your younger players. This is not okay. This is not okay to act like a little baby because you're not winning hockey games. Yeah, it sucks. I get it. As a fan of watching this team, I don't like it. To the point of trading him as well, I was on Locked On Flames with Ryan, and he asked me the question simply flat out. He's like, you can only trade one of these guys before the end of the season. It's either Nazem Kadri or Blake Coleman. Who are you keeping and why? And for a lot of the reasons Robert mentioned there is why I chose Blake Coleman. He's a better player. He's a younger player. He has a better attitude. He wants to be here. He shows he can show up no matter the situations. You just don't see that from Nazem Kadri. And it shows in his play. This guy has 2 goals. I went back to those 2 games against the Oilers around Christmas. It ended up being 20 games. So he's had 2 goals, 6 assists for 8 points in those 20 games for a -16 plus minus, shooting percentage of just 4.8%, and he's getting almost 19 minutes a night. Like, so he's not even showing anything on the ice. He's just not present in the moment. These numbers are worse than Rasmus Andersson, and Rasmus Andersson has 8 less games in that span played for the Flames. So it's just like, you got players that aren't even on this roster showing better in these last 20 games than Nazem Kadri. And I don't want to just go at the player because I don't like the player. That's not it at all. I like Nazem Kadri as a hockey player. When he shows up and he competes hard and he's on his game, he's a really good, effective hockey player. 35 goals last year, career high. Like, he can provide something to a team in the fight. Just doesn't fit Calgary anymore. He doesn't fit the timeline. He doesn't fit the lineup. He doesn't fit whatever the Flames are doing. Nazem Kadri just doesn't fit anymore. And it's best for both him and the team to trade him. I'm not catering to Nazem Kadri like some of the media are suggesting. I'm just going to those teams that aren't on his no trade list. Make me your best offer, because we need to move this guy for the sake of him, for us, for the future of this organization, and get that cap off the books, because coming in the future, we're going to need some flexibility as well to move other things along here. So I'm all for trading Nazem Kadri, and it's not because I don't like Nazem Kadri. It just feels like the thing to do. It's proper asset management, and it's for the betterment of your franchise. And I think that's what you have to look at if you're Craig Conroy.
Yep, I'm 100% with you there. And when they initially signed Nazem Kadri to that 7-year deal, I was pretty skeptical that come year 4 or 5 of that contract, which we're at right now, that he was going to have value on the trade market. I thought the last few years of that deal were going to be literally untradeable. And I thought, his performance was going to start to decline because once you hit your, that age 34 to 36 in that kind of range, things really do start to go downhill for these guys, especially in a league that continues to get faster and younger. So the fact that he has played as well as he has up to this point, I know the last couple months have not been good, but the fact that he actually has some value on the trade market is a complete blessing for the Calgary Flames. And, if they end up getting a second round pick and a prospect for him, then honestly, that's actually a lot more than I would have thought that he could have got when he originally signed the deal. I don't think they need to necessarily hit a grand slam home run on this trade. If they can get a first round pick out of this, you do that 100 times out of 100. Because, like I said, heading into it, I thought at this point in time, you'd probably have to add assets to the deal like they did with Sean Monahan just to get rid of it. But now they're at a point here where they can actually get some assets for him. So take advantage of it because, within the next year or two, that might not be the case. Like if he continues to play like this, then, his value is going to go down to next to nothing. So take advantage of it while you can. Like, this is all part of going through a rebuild. Is you got to be pretty ruthless, and you got to be great with asset management, like you've said. That's super important. And holding on to Nazem Kadri would not be a good use of asset management here. So yeah, I think you and I are definitely on the same page here. I do think it's his time in Calgary is up. He's been a really solid Flame for his time here, and that's great. But like you said, they're embarking on this rebuild. They don't need him anymore, and take advantage of the situation here while he still has value.
Yeah, that's the key at the end there. While he still has value. Another season like this of Nazem Kadri, there's no value, and you're not trading that anymore, right? No one's taking that on. Robert, he's one of many trades I hope is made on trade deadline. I think him and Blake Coleman and possibly a defenseman like Pahal or Hanley's traded out. How many are you expecting to be traded at the deadline? Because I can come up with about 5-6 that I'd like to see. I don't think we're going to get that many, but where are you at with how many trades we're going to see at trade deadline for the Flames in their approach here?
Yeah, I mean, it just feels like this organization, they're not the type of team just to do like a full on, full scale sale,
No.
put the sign in the ground and have a garage sale kind of thing. That's just not the way they roll. So with that in mind, I think they're going to make 3 trades between now and the deadline. So my prediction is that Kadri will be traded. I just, everything we're hearing through insiders is that the Kadri camp is now like working with the Flames on a deal. So it just feels like it's inevitable at this point. So I'll say that Kadri goes. I'll say that Blake Coleman goes because they held him out of the lineup there when he could have returned, and that just shows they're trying to protect the asset. Yeah, which was smart of them, and I give them credit for that. So I do think Coleman will go, and then I think one of Joel Hanley or Braden Pahal will be dealt as well. And it's not going to be a crazy return. Like if for a guy like Hanley, it might be a 4th or 5th round pick. For Pahal, it might be a 5th or 6th, but it's something. And with the way the Flames have been drafting in later rounds over the last couple of years here, that pick could potentially be pretty valuable. I mean, Ethan Wittenbach, who's leading the NCAA and scoring as a freshman, was a 5th round pick. So it's nothing to sneeze at when it comes to this scouting staff. So I'm gonna go. There's gonna be 3 deals: Kadri, Coleman, and then one of Hanley or Pahal. I'd like to see some more deals in there. Like I think both Hanley and Pahal should be moved. I would be open to listening on guys like Frost and Farabee and Sharon Govich and maybe even Pospisil too. Those are all guys I'd be willing to listen on, definitely, but I just don't think that's realistic for this team. So yeah, I'm gonna go 3. How many trades do you think they're gonna make?
Yeah, I'm very similar. I think there's gonna be 4. I think the Blake Coleman, I think that might be a trade like almost right out of the hop after the Olympic break type of trade.
Yeah.
Just how they held him out. I could see that happening really quickly. I think Nazem Kadri around noon on trade deadline day will make his move somewhere else. I think we get one of Hanley or Pahal is moved. So I'm with you on that one as well. And I think there's a mystery one out there. I'm not going to really put a name to it because there's guys that are out there, but I think there's another forward that might be on their way out the door, trying to make room for the Stromgrens and keeping Gridden into the lineup and those kind of things. I think there's one more out there that we're not talking about that might happen, whether that's, say, someone steps up for Morgan Frost, whether that's, and I hate saying this, maybe it's a Connor Zary is included in a deal with someone else to help get a better package, those type of moves. So I think there's one more guy out there we're not talking about going, or we're not talking about going out that might go out the door this year for the Flames. I think we might see that surprise this year. It's just nothing more than a hunch of mine that I'm going based off of, but it'd be fun to watch. Like I could see Farabee getting moved. I can see Frost getting moved. I can see Backlund, obviously, and Kadri getting moved as well. So, and Postel's an interesting one as well that you bring his name up there. Maybe he's the guy that's included in a deal for something else. But I think it's 3 or 4 with a mystery of someone going out the door here. Of these players we're mentioning, Robert, is there someone the Flames should not be trading, should not look at trading? Say, for example, I'll go on this one. I think Joel Farabee is actually a guy they should keep. And the reason I say that is the way that he's performed this season and the way he's dug in, the way he's stepped up his game a little bit. And he's younger than some of these other players we're talking about. He's younger than Sharon Govich. He's younger than Frost. He's younger than Pospisil. It's only by a year or two of all those guys. But age does factor in a little bit when you're talking about trying to find the next core. And I think Joel Farabee, if he's willing to stay in Calgary, could be part of that next core. So he's a guy that maybe I think I would hold on to at least till next year to see what you got in this player, see what his appetite is to stay a little bit longer and to maybe be one of those guys that steps up into a leadership role, maybe takes over Blake Coleman's spot in the lineup after he's traded off to step up in responsibility as per se. So I think that's the guy that I would look at maybe keeping more than trying to trade along. What about you? Anyone on this roster we're talking about trading that maybe they probably should hang on to?
Farabee is an interesting one because, like you said, he's only 25 years old.
Yeah.
And it does seem like his teammates love him. Everything that I hear is that he's like one of the most beloved players in that locker room. So, from that standpoint, yeah, I think that does make some sense.
I do get the argument that he's American and he might want to be in Canada, and I get those arguments because we've seen it in Calgary before. But if he's willing to stay here, maybe he is a guy that takes on a bigger role.
Yeah, I mean, and if he doesn't want to stay, then you can just always trade him in a couple years at the deadline. There's nothing wrong with that. I've been seeing a lot of stuff lately comparing him to Blake Coleman. Like, could Farabee turn his game into a Blake Coleman style of guy? Like what do you see Farabee turning into here? Like, is he just going to be a 30-point winger, or do you see him becoming like a better 200-foot player? And could he push 40, 50 points again? Like, where do you see his future?
I think he's between that 30, 40 points, like 34, 35 type of guy every year. Get that 15-ish goals type of guy, 20 goals somewhere in there. A guy that I think can play in your middle 6, but raise up the lineup if you need it. And those kind of players are very valuable. I don't think he'll ever be a foot player that Blake Coleman is, because that's a high ask, because he's very elite at what he does. But I think he can provide something for you in your middle 6, and you need guys like that. Maybe he's a guy that ends up playing with Matt Ridden down the lineup, and he pops off for a season or two for bigger point totals. Middle 6 winger that scores you 30-ish points to 40-ish points. I'll take that.
I really believe that if he completely dedicated himself to being a 200-foot player, that he could have a very long, successful, and lucrative NHL career. If I were him, and I think both you and I have been saying this on the pod all season, if he could just emulate what Blake Coleman does and become that type of player, with the salary cap going up the way it is, those veteran 200-foot guys that can put up 40 points and play on the penalty kill and be super reliable, he could get paid $5 to $6 million a year on a long-term contract if he really dedicated himself to it. I know he's blocked a bunch of shots this year and he's played hard. I still don't know if he's fully dedicated himself to being that 200-foot guy. So, if he dedicates himself to it, then yeah, There could be a really nice future for him here. The guy I'll shout out, and I wrote about it at Flames Nation a couple weeks ago, but I really believe that they got to keep Ryan Lomberg. And, you know, I've heard Eric Francis talk about how the Flames are definitely listening to calls on him, but I just think the value that he brings off the ice is way more significant than what they could get for him in a trade. If I were the Flames, I would sign him to another 2 or 3 year contract, because the next 2 to 3 years are going to be really rough on the ice. There's going to be a lot of losing. And there's a way to go about that. You can either have a miserable culture where everyone hates coming to work because they know they're not going to win games, and it's just there's no enjoyment in that dressing room and in being around each other, like we've seen kind of with Chicago over the last few years. Or you can kind of take like a San Jose approach to it, where things are fun and it's a fun environment, and you bring in, you know, some good veteran players. You know, like I look at a guy like Tyler Toffoli, who's come in and made it a really fun environment for that team. They're losing a ton of games like over the last couple of years, but they've had a pretty positive culture around it. And like, I don't think it's ever got toxic there. And that's the one thing I worry about with this team is it getting toxic. And with a guy like Ryan Lomberg around, and Michael Backlund and Mackenzie Weegar and Farabee and Ball, you know, like some of these guys who are really good leaders, I would put Ryan Lomberg in like the top 3 in terms of most important personalities and members of the leadership group moving forward, because he is so fun, and he loves to laugh, and he loves to keep things loose. And I think that's just going to be so critical for this team moving forward, especially with a lot of young players. You can't have Matvei Gridin and Zane Parekh and Dustin Wolf being just in a toxic, miserable environment for the next 2 to 3 years. And if you end up losing guys like Ryan Lomberg, there's the potential for it to become that. And you know, there's not going to be like a personality around this team, and there's not going to be any sort of attitude or fun. And I just think that's a recipe for disaster. So I'm all in on keeping Ryan Lomberg, and I really hope the Flames are able to re-sign him. And also, just from like a fan perspective, the guy's awesome. Like, he's super funny. Like, he's great in the media. He's willing to have fun on social media, and he's willing to be mic'd up for the chase. And like you know, he did the thing for the schedule release where he was acting like Rambo. Like, so like all that kind of stuff. Like, that matters for an entertainment product, because that's what that's what NHL team is. It's there to be an entertainment product for the fans, and Ryan Lomberg is highly entertaining. So, and you know, he's not blocking a spot. He's going to be your 12th/13th forward who's going to play 8 to 10 minutes a night. Like, you don't want your young players being in that role, so he's not taking up a spot. So yeah, I think it makes nothing but sense to bring a guy like Ryan Lomberg back, and I really hope it happens. We'll see. I mean, does Ryan Lomberg even want to stay? Does he want to go somewhere and be back on a competitor and try to win a cup? So it's definitely up to him too, because he's a pending UFA. But if I'm the Flames, I'm throwing 2.5, 3.5 million at him for the next couple years, because the salary cap doesn't matter for them, and I'm doing everything I can to keep the guy.
I thought you were going to go that way when I was making my decision of who to talk about, which is why I went Farabee, because I think he's also high on my list of guys I'd keep for everything you just mentioned. There's really nothing I can add there. If the Flames went to him tomorrow or had a press release coming out of the Olympic break that we've signed Ryan Lomberg to a 3-year deal at $3 million a year, fine, great, good, let's keep going. Because this guy's going to matter in the room, and it's not because he's going to provide you 20 goals. It's never going to happen. You need your vibes guy, and this is a vibes guy, both on and off the ice. And he doesn't have to play every night, and he has been playing every night. But he's still the most positive dude on the planet that I've ever seen play the game of hockey. And you need those guys. He's a great leader. He's a guy that can go out there and he can motivate his teammates. He sticks up for his guys. Every teammate to a man loves this dude and sticks up for this guy as well. So it's a good fit. It's a natural fit. He feels like he's at home in Calgary. And this guy's won a cup. Like, he's been there. He's been to Stanley Cup Finals. He knows what it takes to get there at the end of the day. And so if he doesn't really worry about chasing another one or being in another final or being deep playoff runs, if he just wants to play hockey, what better spot to do it than on a team that's going to give him the money and give him the time to play? And that's Calgary. So I think he's a natural fit. I like him too. He's a fun hockey player, and that Ramble thing was incredible. Absolutely incredible. Good luck topping that. Good luck topping that next year. Yeah.
The fans,
he's a fan favorite.
How many times this year has the Dome been just an absolute library, and Ryan Lomberg's the guy who fires things up with a fight or scoring like on a breakaway? Like I found this year that the Dome probably gets the loudest when Ryan Lomberg does something fun. So like the fans love the guy, and like he's a Calgary Flame. Like we talked about Mackenzie Weegar, he's a Calgary Flame through and through. Just the way that he embraces the city and embraces being on the team. Those things are important.
I think it was Huska that says outside of the playoffs that that Lomberg breakaway goal he scored. I remember who it was again. Maybe Edmonton was the loudest pop he's heard in the Settle Zone outside of a playoff game. So that says something about the guy, right? It's against a rival, big goal. Everyone loves this dude. Celebrates this guy's goal. So it's a good guy to keep around if you're looking for vibes guys for your young players. Robert, this last topic's all you. This is one that you wanted to talk about that you're super passionate about, and I love the passion about this. We saw another sports page in Washington Post get axed and tossed aside, and this brings up again how much the industry is changing and how much these local sports guys mean to guys. We saw Wes Gilbertson call it quits in Calgary with Post Media. Guys stepping away here. So it's just local media. We need it. We love these guys. I hate seeing places like Washington axe their sports sections because it doesn't help anybody at the end of the day, in my opinion. What say you here on sports media?
Yeah, it just kind of like you said, like it's just particularly in this market, we're starting to see things dwindle down quite a bit.
Yep.
And it's really sad to see. And Wes Gilbertson stepping away from the industry, and just a shout out to Wes. I mean, the guy's been covering the team forever. I think he's the best storyteller in the city when it comes to sports.
Yeah, he's so really good.
His articles are fantastic. He's done a really good job covering this team for a long time, and it sucks to see a guy like him go. Definitely happy for him. Sounds like he's got a really good opportunity, outside the industry, which is awesome.
Yep.
But yeah, like I just want to say, if you're listening to this podcast, just do everything you can to support local sports media. And, if it's at a place like Flames Nation, click on the articles, engage with the social media, engage with the sponsors. Like, if you need to go, if you're looking to get a new car, like go to a place like Village Honda and tell them, hey, I've heard about you on Barn Burner and like your advertising's working. Or if you're going to buy some meat for a barbecue or something like that, go to Bonton and tell them, hey, Flames Nation sent you there. Like, do stuff like that. Like, let our sponsors know that, you're supporting them, that you heard about their business through Barn Burner or Afterburner or something like that. Like those are the types of things. Or with Sportsnet, continue to listen to their podcasts and support their sponsors and engage with their media personalities, and, the Win column and, newspapers with Danny Austin and all that. Like, I just really hope people continue to engage with these personalities and read the articles. And like I said, support the sponsors, because if we don't do that as a collective group of Flames fans, then this is going to continue to happen. And within the next 5 years, like there's going to be basically nobody covering the team anymore outside the rights holders. So I really implore fans just to continue to support local sports media. Do everything you can to make sure that we can continue to hopefully grow one day and not lose people like we have been, because we don't have anybody with TSN anymore. Like, the second biggest sports media company isn't covering Calgary sports anymore. Like, how bad is that? The Athletic, it's based off of subscription model, but they didn't get enough subscriptions to justify keeping a reporter here in Calgary. Now we're down to one reporter from Post Media now that Wes is leaving. And, it's just kind of, it's a little upsetting to see it. And as someone who's just super passionate about sports media and the sports landscape here in Calgary, I just really want it just to be like a healthy industry. And the only way that's going to happen is if the fans continue to engage. And I'd say even like engage more, like comment more and like more posts and read more articles and support more sponsors. Because if that doesn't happen, then there is no sports media in this city outside of the rights holders and outside of, the actual, little media team that the Flames has going. That's, kind of state-run media. You're never going to get independent thought from that type of thing. So, yeah, just once again, it sucks to see so many people go, but the only way to counteract that is to, go out there and, like I said, just engage as much as you can and help out the sponsors and read articles and click links and all that kind of good stuff, because that's the only way we're going to keep this thing going here. And I don't like the direction things are heading. So just kind of on my soapbox there, and hopefully people listen and hopefully people continue sports media in this town.
Yeah, because guys that are in sports media right now, these guys they're fans as well. They may not be able to outwardly say they love the Flames and they're big fans of the Flames, but Pat Steinberg grew up in Calgary. No doubt he's a Flames fan. Eric Francis has been in Calgary for decades now, covering this team. Danny Austin's a Calgary guy. He covers this team. Gilbertson was a Flames guy for his entire career, grew up in Calgary. So these guys are passionate local guys as well that are running it. It's a shame what TSN's done. It's a shame what The Athletic has done with not having anyone here to cover this team. And there's reasons why I use those guys as my go-to on this podcast. So I always talk about Steinberg stuff, and I reference Eric Francis stuff quite a bit as well. Is because these guys are out there doing the legwork, doing the hard stuff. They have dream jobs. Like, I'm jealous of a lot of these guys' jobs out there. Would be awesome to have that type of job. They're so far and few in between, and they're getting less and less and less. So I'm with Robert here. Let's listen to these guys, read these articles, comment, use this stuff to our advantage as fans of the hockey team, because they're providing us with things that we're not going to get if we stop having coverage of this team. We're going to stop having cool drives in cars with Parker like we had last year. We're going to stop having cool features like Gilbertson has done with, one-on-one interviews with these guys. We're going to stop having these cool things, and these guys are just going to become guys on a hockey sheet of ice that give us small counting stats that we can decipher how we want to, and that's not cool. Like, I love reading these articles on these players and getting to know these guys and the ins and outs of this team and what actually happened in these discussions or those discussions. And all that comes from your local media. Those guys that dive in there are in the room and talking to these players. So support them, whether it is Barn Burner on flamesnation.ca, whether it is picking up a Danny Austin article and reading it the day after a game, whether it is, as much as people hate him, whether it is picking up a controversial article from Eric Francis on Sportsnet. Those things matter at the end of the day for their numbers, and their numbers are going to drive what they're allowed to do. And at the end of the day, we want them to be around to give us those numbers and those articles. So let's give them a reason to stick around. And I'm with Robert on this one. I'm not in Washington, nor do I have any affiliation with Washington, but I saw the Washington Post axing their sports section, and my heart sunk for those fans out there for those exact reasons that Robert and I just laid out here. It's upsetting to see such a good, fun industry get just dwindled every single week.
It's bizarre too, because sports has never been a bigger business, and you take a look at all the media rights deals and
all the podcasts,
and you look at the player salaries and all this kind of stuff. Everything is skyrocketing. And, just overall interest in sports. Like, you look at the TV numbers for, the Stanley Cup final and the Four Nations last year and, the Super Bowl. Like, sports has never been more popular, yet we continue just to see nothing but cuts in sports media. Like, it's just a really weird time to be in kind of sports media and journalism right now. And the only way to combat that, like I said, is just to do everything you can to support local. And once again, just download podcasts, rate those podcasts, give those podcasts 5-star ratings, whether it's Sportsnet or Flames Nation or whoever you want to support. But click on links, read articles, engage on social, do all those things. Because once again, if we as a collective in Calgary don't do that, then we're just going to continue to have our sports media just dwindled. And pretty soon it's literally going to be the rights holder and the Flames covering the team, and that's it. So I would once again, just implore people, do everything you can to support sports media, because things are tough right now. It's a tough industry.
Speaking of flamesnation.ca, Robert, what's coming up from you on that website, and where can the folks find you and your work?
Yeah, with the Olympics and just how insane the IOC is, these guys are the most ruthless people when it comes to their video and photos of players at the Olympics. You can barely cover the Olympics. It's just a complete joke. Just how stringent they are with the Olympics. So it's kind of making my job difficult here with the Flames Nation social, trying to figure out how to cover the Olympics. But try to do our best here. But yeah, follow me at Ring of Fire CGY, and thanks for listening and supporting the podcast. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And I'm Vintage Johnny 84 across social media as well. Lots coming up from us as well throughout the Olympic break. We'll be back with our regular scheduled episode next week. We'll find something to talk about like we did today. And thank you for making us a part of your podcast rotations. Team Canada games kick off in men's hockey this week. So we'll touch on that next week on the podcast as well. Looking forward to those games. Also, go Canada in the women's side of the hockey game. No Poulin versus the Americans, but hey, we'll trudge on and we'll see them in the gold medal game, no doubt there as well. See you guys next week here on the podcast. We appreciate you so much. Enjoy the hockey at the Olympic.